excuse to come and say hi. So we are in this series in discipleship. And week one, 2 weeks ago, we looked at discipleship and Jesus. Specifically, what is discipleship? Like, what is Jesus's view and understanding of discipleship? And what does it look like? And we looked at Jesus specifically. It was intentional. He was very intentional with how he discipled. He literally called them the disciples. He was very intentional that this is on purpose. He was relational. It wasn't just a class. It wasn't like, hey, show up for this 60-minute class and then boom, you're discipled. Now go and disciple other people. It was relational for years in daily life with his guys for years together. And he followed a process, a plan, where it wasn't a one-time deal, and it was like he would challenge them, and when they would mess up, he would have grace, but then he'd also like encourage them to think beyond themselves and like challenge them in their kind of their traditional understanding of how things were supposed to be. And so he was intentional, he was relational, and he followed a plan. And then last week we looked at discipleship and the church, and we started by looking at what is a church, what makes a church a church, and we started with these questions, and I asked you, can a church be people on a walk in the forest, or at a movie, or having a dinner together, or having just a random Bible study, and a lot of the answers were like yeah. Until we looked at, well, hold on, now what does the Bible call a church? And there were 10 things that we looked at that were specific to the church that we looked at in the book of Acts, and we pulled out, and we looked at even Paul's kind of his what he told Timothy and Titus to do when they were going to start churches. And there were very specific things that a church has to either do or have to be considered a church. And we looked at, okay, so what makes a church a church? What makes it unique? And then what is the church's role in discipleship? And we looked at that last week. So again, if you want to catch up, all the sermons we do are online, so you can go jump online. I think even on Spotify. So if you're like, hey, I just want to listen, I don't want to watch, you can just like subscribe to our channel. I'm trying to get my wife to subscribe. She hasn't done it yet, but just kidding, by the way. So if you want to catch up, you totally can. And now this morning, we're going to look at another aspect of discipleship, kind of another sphere or area of our lives. And probably just like the last ones, even last week, I know I ruffled some feathers and kind of, stepped on a few toes. This is gonna not necessarily step on toes where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I like what he said or agree, but you're gonna feel it. It's gonna feel like some conviction of, ooh, okay, maybe we're not doing, ooh, I don't know if I'm doing that thing, or ooh, that hurts a little bit. And it's gonna feel like somehow we or me, I'm calling you out on areas where you could be better. And let me just start by saying this. I am preaching this sermon to me today. As much as you're gonna think like, oh, okay, that's what I needed to hear, I'm telling you, I need to hear this. Like, I'm preaching about discipleship and the home, and I need to focus on discipleship in my home. So as much as we all are gonna maybe feel like, ooh, that kind of hurts a little bit. Listen, I promise you, we all are in the boat together. All of us are gonna feel like, man, I could be doing more. Because it's true. We all can, and we're not perfect. And I'll talk about this here in a second. But I just want to give a preface that this is gonna like, ooh, okay, in an encouraging way where I hope we end and we say, all right, I can do this, and I feel encouraged and empowered to do this, and I want to do discipleship in the home. All right, I feel like I have maybe some tools to do it. All right, I can do this. I hope we leave with encouragement, though in the beginning it's gonna feel like, ooh, that hurts a little. So I wanna start by asking, and this is rhetorical because all of us, you know the answer. Who are the people that you care about the most in your life? The people you care about the most in your life. I don't even have to know who you are or their names, but I know this. You will say, oh, my family. My family. Of everyone on the planet, of all of them, and you don't know all of them, but assuming you knew all of them, your family would be at the top of your priority list. Should be, I imagine. That the people even when your family might be at odds or there's broken relationships, maybe with, a parent thing or a sibling thing or even a child thing where it's just not, it's not how you want it to be. Even in those moments, you're still saying, but I love them with everything that I am, with all that I have. Maybe we're not even talking right now, but I love them and they're still a priority to me and they're still some of the most important people in my life. That your family, right? Blood is thicker than water. Your family is the most important, those are the most important relationships and people in your life. Here's another way to put it. Who do you want to be in heaven with you the most? And, don't give me the Christian answer I want everyone to be in heaven. Well, yes, okay, maybe. Yeah, great. But who do you really want? Who are the ones that no, but if everyone else can fend for themselves, but the people that I want to be with, people I want to be with forever, it's your family. It's the same people, right? It's your family, your immediate family. They are the most important people in my life. They're the closest people in my life. They're if they're struggling, it brings me the most amount of heartache and struggle. When they're happy, it brings me the most amount of joy. It's your family. Your family. And so here's this morning, ready? How are you helping your family grow closer to the Lord? As we talk about discipleship, then the people that you should be wanting to invest in and help grow the most should be that same group of people, your family. The people that you care about the most, the people that you want in heaven with you, to be with you forever the most. I want all of you to know the Lord. I really do. That's why I do this job. It's I want to help you grow in the Lord. But you know who I really, really want to know the Lord? My family and my kids. They are the most important to me. And I imagine your family is the most important to you. So it would make sense then that if we're talking about discipleship and your role in discipleship, that your family should be at the top of your list of people you want to see discipled, to see grow in their faith, to grow in their understanding of who Jesus is and their experience of him. They should be at the top of the list. Now, I can just by the look, I can already tell. Some of you are ready to walk out of the sermon right now. You're I already know this is gonna hurt. And so a couple things. It's not gonna hurt as bad as you think. And we're gonna end with some encouragement. But I wanna start by saying this, okay? So here comes a little bit of the pain. The role of discipling your family rests with you, not the church. Okay, ready? The job to disciple your family, the responsibility, the role of discipler in your family is yours. It's not mine. It's not the job of the church to do all the work for you. Here's the role of the church. Ready? Paul tells us in Ephesians chapter 4 to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. And then he ends with so that we can all reach unity and eventually maturity. He says this, the reason Jesus gave apostles and teachers and pastors and prophets was so that they would equip God's people for works of service. Not that they would do all of the works of service. The role of the church is not to do your work for you. I was a youth pastor for a little over a decade. I had hundreds, probably in the thousands of kids go through the ministry at larger churches and a ton. I mean, honestly, a ton. And I say that because I got to interact with, over 10 years, hundreds of families. More than most get to interact with and see their kids kind of grow up from kind of becoming kind of mature, puberty, all the way into college and then post-college and get married and start having kids of their own. I've been a part of that life for a lot of families. And I can tell you, there have been a lot of good, well-meaning, loving parents who love the Lord and also outsource discipleship to the church. They outsource the responsibility of discipling the most important people in their life to someone else. And then if it goes wrong or if it didn't happen how they want, then they complain that the church isn't doing its job because so-and-so didn't call my son or visit my son, or you guys didn't do this event, or I don't like how you guys did this, or I don't like that you did. And I would hear this and I would go through it, and here's my response. And I was very nice when I said this. I'll be much more blunt with you because, what are you gonna do to me? Here we go. At most, I would have students in our ministry for 1 to 2 hours a week. That was the dedicated students who came every Sunday and then came midweek. Maybe if they were in a small group and all right, I'll get 3 hours maybe. And the rest of the time, they're with you. They're with mom and dad at home. And it is unrealistic to expect that a 1 hour a week on a Sunday morning is going to effectively and sufficiently disciple your child. And the 6 other days of the week, you just leave it up to chance. You just hope it works out. And they go through middle school and high school, and no wonder that the rates of drop-off is anywhere from 50 to 80% of church kids who leave the faith. Not because like mom and dad are terrible people, but it might be because we have a discipleship problem that we think it's the church's job to fix our kids. Listen, the role of discipling your family, it rests with you. You are the primary discipler of your family. It's how God set it up. The church, though, does have a role. The church is secondary in its discipleship of the family. We are supplemental. We supplement what you should be doing at home. And what happens is so many times, nothing's happening at home, so the church is the only thing that anyone gets. And so it stresses, it puts all the stress on the church, and then the complaints come when the church isn't living up to the standards of discipling and disciple making at home, because that's the job of the parents. And if they aren't doing it, and then what happens is everyone gets upset and frustrated because it's out of order, it's out of whack. That you are the primary discipler in your family, and the church is secondary. Now notice what we said: secondary, not optional. We didn't say it's optional. I did not say that church is optional and just use it when you can. It is the church is not optional for your life. It's not optional for your kids' lives, for your grandkids' lives. Because listen, Jesus died for the church, and he came to set up his church, and the gates of Hades weren't gonna prevail against his church. The church is, it'd be like saying this: Jesus, I love you, but I really don't like your bride. But I love everything about you. And he says, that was the most offensive thing you could say to me. The most offensive thing you could say to me is, Brandon, I really like you, but your wife is, if she's around, I don't want to be around. Now, first of all, she's way better than me, so you probably prefer her over me. But you say that to me and think that we're gonna be fine. We're gonna have a really good, nice relationship. Oh man, I love how you talk about my wife so disrespectfully. But when we say the church, when we talk about the church that way, Jesus is saying, that's my bride, right? That's my bride you're talking about. Church is secondary in its discipleship of your family, but it's not optional. It is not optional. My kids, our family, schedule is all funky and stuff. And my kids, one's in middle school right now, and then one's in high school, or 2 are in middle school. And they got up early this morning. They on their own, but also we arranged ahead of time last night. Hey, I know that the schedule is funky, but you're gonna come early with me when I get here, early, so that you can be at church because it's important. You don't just get to skip church just because it's more convenient to sleep in. I don't want my kids to grow up with the option of saying, do you want to go to church today or not? Let me encourage you, if that's you or where you've been, and if you're a high schooler or middle schooler and you're in here, I say this unapologetically but sympathetically, knowing that you're probably dragged into this and you're going oh, big church is so boring. First of all, how dare you say I'm so boring, okay? But second, listen, if you grow up thinking church is optional, when you leave the house, do you know what church still is to you? Optional. You grow up, you leave, parents, if you raise your kids to think church is optional, if you're tired, just sleep in, but like it's not that important of a thing, when it is crazy to then think when they leave the house, all of a sudden the church is gonna become a primary part of their life. It's always been, we raise them to think it's optional. What do you know? They think it's optional and they walk away. And then we blame maybe the church, they just didn't reach out enough. And I'm saying, hey, we got plenty of stuff to do. You just gotta get them here. You gotta be involved. Listen, you are the primary discipler in your home. The church is secondary, but it's not optional. So let's talk about discipling in the family. Here we go. We're gonna look at what Paul tells us. The single greatest lesson you can teach your kids is not how to be a good person. It's not how to have a successful career, how to get into a really good college, it's not even, here's how you treat people. That's good, it's all fine. That's not the greatest thing. When your kids grow up, the thing that you, like, the ultimate goal is not that they grow up thinking, well, this is what it means to be a good person. Here's, ready? Newsflash, okay? And you know this, you are a sinful person. And your kids didn't skip the sin bug. They are sinful people. And they will make mistakes, and some of them intentional. So no one's perfect here, ready? We can be good-ish, but we are sinful people in need of a Savior. What you can the greatest lesson you can teach your kids is not how to be a good person. It's this, ready? It's how to honor people. Well, Paul tells us, what Moses tells us in the Ten Commandments, what God tells us, he tells Moses, write this down in the Ten Commandments, is all about honor. Here's what Paul says in Ephesians chapter 6, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And then he quotes this, he says, honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Now, after this series, we're gonna jump back into our 10 Commandments series, and we're gonna look specifically at this commandment. So I don't wanna spend too much time here, because we'll look at this here in just a few weeks. But here's what he says, ready? Here's what he says, children, here's what I want you to do. I want you to obey your parents. Not just because, he gives a qualifier. Obey them in the Lord. This is a spiritual role that they have in your life. It's not saying for the rest of your life, do what mom and dad says. That's not what he's saying. But obey your parents in the Lord. This is what God, this pleases God. And then he says, he quotes the commandment. And here's the commandment, ready? Honor your father and mother. That's different. Now, again, in a few weeks, we'll talk more about what this looks like. But the lesson here is not about behavior. It's not. The motive is honor, and it's carried out with how you treat people. And so this, I've said this before, and so I'll say it again. Our goal, my goal, maybe I'll speak to myself and I'll let you decide if you want to join my side, the correct side or not. My goal is not to raise good little Christian boys and girls. I've had so many good little Christian boys and girls come through the ministry and then walk away from faith. Because for them, Christianity was just do the do's and don't do the don'ts. And then eventually they said, I don't know if I agree with these don'ts or these do's. I think I'll go my own way. And if the goal is to just simply raise good little Christian boys and girls who do all the things that you want them to do, and they say the right things and believe the right things, but it's never really internal. It's just like they're wanting to please mom and dad to, like, I just want to, all right, fine, just don't make mom upset. Don't make dad upset. All right, then great. And then when they graduate high school and they go out on their own, guess what? Guess what Christianity is for them? It's do's and don'ts that they probably don't agree with. It's never personal, because for them, it was just about being, my kids, I want them to be good people. I do, of course. I don't want them to be bad people. I want to raise my kids to do good things, to do the right thing always, to have integrity, of course. But that's not enough. I don't want them to just grow up to be like, all right, here's your life, and then you get to the end of your life and you say like, yeah, I did okay. If my kids come to me one day and say, hey, Dad, I know I'm supposed to, the college thing, and I want to, and the job and the career, but I really feel the Lord's calling me to something else. Like, okay, well, college is a good calling that the Lord is calling on your life, because he told me to tell you to go to college. And so you should go to college. Okay, yeah, I get it. And you go get a degree. But if they say my career, I think God wants me to be a missionary in a third world country where there's persecution. I think okay. Like, is this dangerous? Yeah, it's dangerous. People have died doing this. Okay, 2 things. Number 1, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you really sure? And number 2, I want to be the kind of dad who says, how can I help you do that? Not to protect what I think your life should be or what I want it to be. But I really want you to go do this. And they say, but I think that God wants me to do this. Okay, Lord, that was not our goal. All right. I don't want to raise a good little Christian boy and girl who does what they're expected. I want someone who says, Dad, I want to change the world. Okay. Do you know who changes the world? Not little good Christian boys and girls. You know who changes the world? People who are willing to sacrifice anything and everything. Oh, we call them revolutionaries. Jesus was a revolutionary. He changed the world, and it cost him everything. Ooh. Raising one of those, that's different. That's different. I don't want to raise kids who just do what they're told to do. Now, here's the deal. To talk about honor and discipleship in the home, here's the deal, okay? Now, I'm going to say this, and half of you are going to feel like, oh, man, that hurts. And the other half are going to do this. Yeah, he's right. He's right. Yep. When are we going to get this right? Okay. Here's the deal. Ready? Dad, it starts with you. Discipleship in the home starts with dad. That's okay. And then last service, there were a few wives that were like, yeah, well, when are you going to start? A couple things, okay? Number 1, this is a high calling. This is a high calling that we take serious. Number 2, wives, moms, your job is not, you need to hear this. Your job is not to call out when your husband gets it wrong. It's not your job. It's not your job to say, see, you need to do this, you need to do that. I want you to do this. Do you know what he will do? He will shut down. Do you know how I know he will shut down? Because I shut down. You need to do this. Excuse me, I need to do what? Well, if you were just like this, then you would be this, and then our kids would be better. It's your fault. Hold on. What? It's a high responsibility for dads. High calling, right? To be the leader of the home. Okay. And here's the deal. Dads, you're going to mess up. You're going to get it wrong. And wives, you're going to mess up and you're going to get it wrong. And the goal is not to do this, to say, well, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Well, if you would do this, if you would lead, well, if you would support, and instead of doing this thing and the kids see this thing and they grow up thinking this is marriage, and then they get married, and then guess what? They have this thing with their wife, and it's like, oh man. Instead, it should be, all right, you're right. I failed. I made mistakes. You know what? I made mistakes. Okay, together, let's look at what this should be like. Ooh, that's a different kind of home that says, all right, instead of just pointing blame, there's enough blame for us all to go around to all of us like, all right, what's my role? What's God calling me to now? Now let's talk about discipleship. Okay, here's what as we talk about this, within the family, it's the father's role to be the primary discipler. Here's what Paul tells us. He says, fathers, he doesn't say parents. He says, fathers, do not embitter your children or they will become discouraged in Colossians 3. In Ephesians chapter 6, he says this, fathers, not parents. He talks about children and then he moves to fathers. Do not exasperate your children, or literally it means to provoke your child to anger. Don't provoke your children to anger. We know that can happen, and it often does, and especially because like anger kind of builds up in us, and then we put it on the kids, and then they experience that, and so he says, don't do that. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord, the correction, the discipline, the discipling, the training, and the instruction, the counsel of the Lord. That's your role, to say, I'm gonna train and instruct my kids in the Lord, to disciple them in their relationship with God. The parents' role, especially fathers, is both negative. He gives us both a negative and a positive command. Don't exasperate, and do train and instruct them. Now, this is the ideal, okay? So not every family is ideal. And anytime we talk about family stuff, it's a difficult topic. But being just because it's a difficult topic doesn't mean we shy away from it. So all right, here's what we understand. Not every family has a father. If that's your family, then discipleship rests on you. If you're a single mom, it's not like there's no dad, so I just get out of jail free card. No, here's what that means. The discipleship rests on you. If mom and dad aren't in the home, or maybe I know we have a number of families here that the grandparents are raising the kids, guess what? The primary discipler then moves to you. You now have the responsibility to disciple and raise up these children, to take it on you. If dad's not in the home, it goes to mom. If mom's not at home, it goes to whatever relatives there are. And that's the order. And then the church is down here saying, how can we help you disciple your kids? Instead of, hey, give them to us, we'll take it from here. You've messed them up enough. Thank you very much. It rests with dad. So, dad, this is a high calling. And I'm speaking to myself and saying, I can and need to and will do better at discipling my kids. If these are the most important people in your life, the most important relationships, then this is too big of a deal to leave up to chance by outsourcing to someone else and hoping they do a good job. I hope that the church does good with my kids, but I don't really know. Ooh. These are the train in instructing your children to be a good person or to have a good job. It's all good, but this is different. This is training them in the Lord and their knowledge and experience of God. So how do you do this? How do you disciple in the home? Because that's the next logical question is like, okay, I'm convinced I need to do this, or I need to do better at this, or I need to just think more intentionally about this. I want to grow in how I disciple and invest in my kids. How do you do this, okay? And this is both, again, this is all of us, mom, dad, everyone. Dad, your job is to take the lead, but it doesn't mean mom's not involved in the kids' lives. Of course not. So what does this look like? It's actually, how do you disciple in the home? It's actually quite simple. It's really simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple. Here it is, ready? Determine what helps you grow in your faith, and then provide that for your family. That's it. Determine what helps you grow in your faith. What is it that helps you grow? Where you're saying, this is the thing that really, it seemed to just really help me grow spiritually in my understanding of who God is, my experience of him. Whatever that thing is, or those things, here's what you do. Ready? You provide those environments and those opportunities for your kids, for your family. For me, I want my kids to do two things. I want them to grow in two areas. And honestly, this is probably everything. It's probably it. In their knowledge and understanding of who God is and their experience of him. Everything else is extra. I want them to grow in their knowledge of God and their understanding of who he is and in their experience. That this is a personal experience that they have with him. It's not one or the other, it's both. And here's how you do that. Ready? You determine how you grow in your understanding of God and your experience of him. And you provide those opportunities. So, was it a Christian friend? Was it a Christian friendship that helped you? Someone came along, maybe a mentor or someone that really helped challenge you and encourage you? Great. And you want that for your kids. Another reason why they should be at church around other people's kids. So I want my kid to be around good, positive influences with people who share their values. Man, awesome. Be praying for them that God will that they would have good Christian friends. Was it reading the Bible for yourself where you're like, man, it really took off was when I started reading my Bible. That's when I really felt the change where it was personal. Awesome. Then you know what you do with your kids? You teach them to read their Bible for themselves. Not as go to your room and you will read the Bible until I say so. When I let you out, you can be done. You should never punish your children with the Bible or with church. It should never be a punishment where it's this is punitive. They should never associate the church with something negative, that this is, if I do bad, then mom is going to do this, or dad will do this and restrict or punish me with church. Don't do it. Discipline in other areas, but I'm telling you, I've seen this so many times where kids grow up thinking Christianity and Jesus and church is just all about power and control because mom and dad just wielded the sword with it. Don't Do it. Don't do it. For you, was it a Bible study where you got really involved? You joined a Bible study. Awesome. Then you know what you want to do for your kids? Have them join a Bible study. If you get kids who are in youth, we do small groups. If you have littles, they're in their classrooms right now going over like Bible lessons right now on a Sunday as we speak. Awesome. Wonderful. Was it learning to pray on your own? Teach your kids. Here's what it looks like to pray and give them opportunity and encourage them to, hey, you know what? Maybe you should pray about that. And not like, hey, let's pray right now with mom in the room. I want you to pray out loud. I need to hear your prayers. No. No, this is their relationship. If they want to pray privately in their bed with the Lord, guess what? They get to pray privately in their bed with the Lord. It's not about control. For you, was it being intentional about your quiet time to say like, I have a dedicated time with the Lord? Awesome. Every morning or every evening or whatever. Great. Encourage them to do the same. Or if you do that, let them see it. Model it. I remember just a number, over summer when we were going through Judges, part of my pattern was getting up early and just reading through Judges each morning. The kids would, come down and I'd already be up or whatever. And then we switched out of the series and something else, I can't remember what happened, but I stopped doing it in the morning and I switched to reading when I got here in my, because I'm paid to be spiritual, so I got to go do that. So I'd come to church and come to my office and be like, all right, I'm going to read here. And then this is so funny. Kira, my daughter, she's second grade. She goes, Dad, why'd you stop reading your Bible? I'm like, I didn't stop reading my Bible. She goes, well, you used to do it in the mornings and then you don't read it anymore. I'm like, oh my gosh. Without even knowing it, they're watching. And her assumption was, oh, Dad just quit the Bible because I stopped seeing him read it. Man, I got to start getting up early now and read the Bible just so she thinks I'm a Christian. So for you, how can you disciple your kids? Was it learning to trust God in your circumstances? Guess what you encourage your kids to do? To trust God in their circumstances. Not to fix it for them, but all right, how can we trust God? What do you think God might be doing in your life or trying to teach you through this thing? And I don't know, maybe this, awesome, okay. So, for you, what helps you grow? And do that. Now, two things, okay? Number one, we said this before, I'll say it again. You will make mistakes. You have made mistakes. In fact, this is true also. This got a nudge last week or last sermon from the child who was sitting next to the parent. Parents, you have already ruined your kids. You've done a great job at creating issues and scars for them when they grow up and they parent and they're like, oh man, my mom used to do this, my dad used to do this. You've already messed up. Here's the deal, ready? All of us have. That is why the gospel is good news. You have messed up and you are sinful and you do make mistakes, sometimes intentional. And you know what? There's grace for that. So two things are true. You will mess up and God still has grace. God has grace for you, for kids. God has grace for your parents when they mess up, and God has grace for you when you mess up. And there's enough grace for all of us. Like His grace is sufficient for all of us. But listen, the goal here isn't perfection. You can't be perfect. You won't be. You will make mistakes. So here's what that requires for you, okay? It might mean then recognizing when you do make mistakes. So some of us have littles in the home. You have littles, and they're still like, like maybe they're not even in school yet. Or maybe you don't have kids yet, and you're like, that's still future for you. Okay, you're in a great spot because you now get to decide how you will disciple your kids. Awesome. You get to figure it out before they get into it. Others of us, you have olders, right? So you don't have the littles. Like I have olders now. So I have high school, middle school, and then second grade. So they're kind of all over. So I have a high schooler now. And I don't know if this is true in your experience. Maybe some of you who have high schoolers, it feels like somebody presses fast forward once they get to high school. Because these years are going fast. I mean, like when they're little, you're going, oh, is it bedtime yet? And then when they're older, it's like, wow, the month's over. The month it just went by. And so if they're older, here's the deal. You might feel a little left behind, like, oh, I should have done this years ago. And let me just encourage you with this. Ready? There's still plenty of time. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at how much change can happen in such a short amount of time if you're intentional. That within 6 months, a year, if you're like, I just want to focus on discipling my kids. Maybe they're a junior or senior and they're almost out of the house. But you know what? All right, honey, I went to church today and I heard the sermon what do you think about if we just started like talking about the Bible or praying together, or just maybe we read and then we come together and we just discuss what God's doing in our life? Would that be something we can do? I bet you your kid will be like, yeah, that sounds kind of cool. That sounds cool, right? If it's offered as an opportunity, and then you'll be amazed at, wow, how much can happen in just a short amount of time. And then there's some of us who have adult kids, and your role has shifted now from like parenting your kids because they're out of the house, and maybe they're at a spot where they have kids of their own. Awesome, great. You know your role then? Your role is to now disciple the grandkids, right? Your kids, who are probably your favorite kids anyways now. Your job then is to say, okay, my kids are up out of the house, but we can disciple my kids through how we interact with their kids, with the grandkids. That the grandkids now, not that you take control of them, but like when they come with grandma and grandpa's house, they will hear about Jesus. And maybe you start, hey, we're gonna pray real quick. Okay, we're just gonna pray for the day, pray for our meals, and maybe every time they come over, you guys, like mom, like grandma and grandpa, you get excited and you go, hey, maybe we'll just share a little quick Bible story. You guys want to do a quick Bible story? And then we can go play and do all that stuff. And like, oh, wow. I love going to grandma and grandpa's because every time we go, they give us a Bible story and then a sucker. And it's like, it's amazing. And like, I love grandma and grandpa's. Awesome. Be that grandparent where they go, I love going to grandma and grandpa's house, and you are praying for them and you're sharing with them and you're talking about the Lord in front of them. Even if maybe your kids have walked away from the faith and you're like, this is how, but still, I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna help disciple their kids and we'll just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. If that's you and you have adult kids maybe that have walked away from the faith, okay, this is might be hard. So the first thing is you can look at your own grandkids as people to disciple. For your kids, it might require you to swallow a little bit of pride here, to acknowledge that you did make some mistakes. And ready? This is maybe the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. To apologize to your kids and ask for their forgiveness. And if there are some things that like I'm at odds with my kids, and there's enough blame to go around, but for you to say, I'm gonna own up to my stuff. All right? Do I really have to call my kids and apologize? We don't have to do anything, but you get to. You have the opportunity to model forgiveness with your own kids by asking for forgiveness yourself. Some of us, not all of us, but I think some of us in this room, that might be the thing that God is calling you to. That's hard, but that is good. That is modeling the gospel. So, as we talk about discipleship in the home, I'm going to give you a few resources and then we'll jump quickly to kind of filling out the rest of our wheel. First, these resources. So this is what I've been doing now, like in our family. There's a resource called the New City Catechism. New City being like representing the New Jerusalem or heaven, or so it's like it's a cool name, but don't get lost in the title. Here's what it is. Ready? It's 52 questions and answers about faith, about the faith, about Christianity. And there's two different options. So there's this one. It's the black one. This is for like elementary age kids. So I've been going through this with my daughter. There's 52 of these. You can do one a week, or we do it at night at our part of our bedtime thing. And here's what a page looks like. And I just let her read it. She's learning to read, so it's helping her read. But also, she's like doing it herself. And she reads the question, reads the answer, and then reads the verse. And I'm telling you, it's great. It's just simple, bite-sized stuff. I promise you, if you have littles, if they're just learning to read elementary-ish, you can do this easily. And then if they have questions, you're there to answer and to discuss and chat and like, do you know what that word means? And usually if it's a big word, they're like, I don't know, because this is really, really in-depth good stuff. I don't know what sanctification means. And then your response is, I don't know either. I'm gonna have to look this up. And all of a sudden, like, you're learning from this children's resource, going like, I'm growing in my faith. And awesome. So I've been going through this with my daughter, and it's great. And some nights if she goes to bed late or whatever, we'll just for the sake of time, we'll skip it. And she always reminds me, she's like, Dad, we didn't do our Bible and our book. And I'm like, man, she's like keeping me accountable to disciple her. Like, Dad, you didn't do it again. Like, I'm sorry, right? But this is, I'm telling you, a great resource. If you have littles, you can read it to them or have them read it. Okay, number 2, if you have olders, they have an older version as well. The New City Catechism Devotional. This is, so my middle schoolers and high schooler, they each have a copy, and they're reading their stuff, and then we're going to talk about it. All right, we're going to read questions 1 and 2, and then we'll get together and all right, so what did you guys read? What did you like? What did you hear? What was new? What don't you understand? What questions do you have? And we're just going to go through these resources. I'm telling you, if you don't know where to start, just get these and say, all right, we could do this. We could do this. We could do it. This, and if not these, do something with your kids. All right, now we're going to talk about our discipleship wheel. We'll end here. This is our wheel. We've been talking about it for the last number of weeks as kind of the discipleship process, because as we talk about discipling in the home, I imagine a lot of us are going like, I need to be discipled, let alone like, I know I need to disciple my kids, but like, I need to grow in my faith. Awesome. So we looked at the various the categories, the spiritually lost, the spiritual infants, the spiritual children, the spiritual young adults, and the spiritual parents. And all of these categories kind of represent our walk and our faith. And I'll go fairly quickly. I apologize. We've gone through this the last 2 weeks, so some of us it'll be catch up in kind of review here. But we look at this and say, all right, we are all in one of these categories, one of these phases, right? And you go through them in order. You don't go from spiritual infant to now, like, I am now a parent, right? This isn't how it works in real life. Your kids don't go from kid to, like, infant to parent. There's a process of maturity that you go through, and there is for spiritual maturity as well. Paul talks about this. He talks about how they're spiritual babies when they should be having, they're needing spiritual milk when they should be having meat. And he's like, you haven't grown up in the faith yet. So we looked at these and we said, all right, as a church, here's what we will do to help like the spiritual infant, those who are new to faith, grow in their faith, to start attending church, get baptized, go to Starting Point, begin attending church regularly, begin reading the Bible, just open it up, read through John, and just like see what happens, and begin praying. Okay, if you're new to faith, that is plenty. That's like, okay, that's a lot of stuff. Good. This is gonna help you grow in your faith. To get to the next point, where you're kind of in the spiritual child phase, where you're now more than an infant, like you have some independence, some autonomy, but you still require other people to feed you, just like a child. And so you're still needing, like, you're still not ready to be self-sufficient. So spiritually, you're still growing in your faith, but you still don't know what you don't know, and you're growing. So we said, all right, we're gonna have some theology 101 classes for people to take. Not that classes are the end all, but they will help you like grow in your understanding. We want you to begin tithing. Something happens when all of a sudden, when you start like sacrificing your finances for the mission of Jesus and the church, where you go, all right, I'm in. Like I'm actually, more so than just like taking the resources of the church and all the things they offer, I'm helping actually sustain the church and help like provide resources so that people, like we can reach people for Jesus. Awesome. And then a Bible reading plan. Start regularly reading the Bible, more than just John now, like, all right, and get connected with a New Hope ministry and start attending a First Wednesday where we go deeper in a topic. Join a small group. We have that opportunity. Literally, we just talked about it today. And then do another class to discover your shape, how God has wired you, one of the things that we'll begin here shortly. And so we talked about these last week and said, all right, here's where we are. If you're in these two categories, here's kind of like what you need to be thinking about in your walk. And then this bar we said is membership. Membership is the thing where it's not where you like, listen, I don't know if you guys know this. I went through membership. I'm on a different spiritual plane than everyone else. That's not what membership is. It's not like some spiritual like a key that you just unlocks everything. Membership is this. Membership is you saying, I'm committing to Jesus' mission at this church, this local church. And when I say this church, it could be any church. You can be a member of any church. You're attending this church because I see you, you're here. So I assume that this is the church you call home. And membership is you saying, I'm in on the mission, and I'm in on this church, and I want, this is the team, I'm on the team, coach put me in, all right, let's go. So we want you to think about membership as being like, all right, I am invested and committed to this church. And then we, as you grow into like become a spiritual young adult, we will offer theology 201 classes. Awesome, right? And these are kind of like the next step, next like level beyond the 101, hence 201. And then we want you to think about joining a Bible study, more than just a small group. And this could be a men's Bible study, a women's Bible study. Even within those, like we have in our men's ministry, we have other guys that just have their own Bible studies that they do on the side and guys are a part of. And you know what? You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to join a Bible study. You're allowed to start a Bible study on your street. Whatever you want. Like, join another one. Great, wonderful. Join a Bible study where you're like, I'm going to grow in my understanding of who God is through the Bible. We want you to think about begin serving at New Hope, where it's no longer about like, feed me, but all right, I want to help invest in other people. I want to actually think about what it means to serve. Even right now, we have dozens of people in our various classes and ministries, all like serving right now so that you could be here and your kids could be ministered to and your students could be ministered to. We had people, yesterday we had 50, 60 people come on the campus to like help make this place look good. Like we have plenty of people who want to serve, and we want you to think about what it would look like to serve, not to be served. And this is a great thing we're going to be starting here soon. One of the things we're looking at is providing short-term mission trips that anyone who wants to go on a mission trip. And so as we get closer to launching these, you'll start hearing more about mission trip opportunities, which is really exciting. And then we want you to think about committing to serving to a ministry, more than just like, more than serving once or twice a year, to say, all right, I'm going to serve in this ministry. This is my spot. I'm going to go make coffee. I'm gonna make coffee every other week or once a month. So, because listen, I can tell you this, if the coffee stops flowing, the church will get going. I don't know, that's a pretty terrible, but people will like, there's no coffee today? All right, we're going to the next church. Like, I exaggerate, but that's actually kind of true. And then we say, all right, we want you to grow. All right, okay, so you're in this area? Okay, great, you're serving, you're growing in your faith, and wherever you are, the idea is like if there's things that you maybe missed or skipped over, that your next step is not in front of you, it might be behind you, where you're going, I haven't been baptized. All right, guess what? We would love to baptize you. That might be your next step, is to get baptized, or like, I'm gonna begin tithing, or I've never been to a First Wednesday, or I've never been in a small group, but even though I'm over here, I kind of skipped some of these. All right, awesome. Your next step might be some of the things that are behind you. And then as you move forward, we'll have 301 classes, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then this is what I'm excited for. One of the things that we're launching is what we're calling discipleship cohorts, where you join a discipleship cohort. And here's what a discipleship cohort is. Ready? It's not for everyone, because it is this. It is a group of 5 to 8, at most maybe 10 people who meet every week for a year, and to intentionally, for an hour and a half, to talk and discuss discipleship and growing in your faith. This is the one-on-one kind of like stuff where this is the Jesus model, where, hey, there's just a group of people doing life together regularly and talking about Jesus, reading the Bible together, and then praying together and saying, this is the group where we do life together for 1 year. And then we send you off to go do your own groups. And so as we'll start some pilot groups here soon enough, and then we'll like talk more about this. This is something I'm super excited about as we talk about discipleship. And then think about serving as a ministry leader, more than just serving, but maybe God's calling you to lead, to become a small group apprentice, a number 2 sort of in a small group leader in training, so to speak. And then, like for the parent who's saying, I want to be a disciple who makes disciples, it might be you then leading a mission trip, or leading a small group where you're now the leader of this group, or leading once we get these discipleship cohorts going, you're going to now lead one of these things where you're like actually discipling people in real life on an ongoing basis. Awesome, okay? So this is the process. This is what discipleship looks like at New Hope. And wherever you are, there's the next thing for you. And then we have, in the middle here, this is one of these things we're calling hope and healing. And these are need-based classes, so to speak. And I'll mention them here in a second. These are the things that kind of, they don't depend, regardless of what spiritual level, like area you're at, these can hit home. These are things like, what do you do with the loss of a loved one? Yeah, what do you do if you go through divorce, right? More so than theology, you're just sitting here going, I'm hurting and I need help. I need healing. We'll have these kinds of classes available here. Okay, so let me go through the classes. Here's our options. Ready? Our 101, 201, 301 classes. 101 classes are Christianity Explained. Here's the overview of Christianity. Here's what it is. If you're sitting here going like, I don't know, like, if someone said, what is Christianity? You would say, something to do with Jesus, I think. If you're just saying, I don't know if I can explain the details and the truth of Christianity, this is the class for you. An evangelism class, how to share your faith. Spiritual disciplines, what are they and how to do them. How to study your Bible, awesome. And then we have practical theology classes, Financial Peace University. How should I handle my finances? Family and parenting classes, and a marriage course. Maybe you're going like, I just want to invest in my marriage. Like, of all the other stuff that I need to work on, like the marriage is the thing that either like we need to work on, or hey, we just want to get stronger in our marriage. My wife and I took this class when we had it, pre-COVID, and it was great. It was great, not because we're in crisis, but it was like, hey, this is nice just to like set aside time to work on our marriage. And then there's 201 classes. The Bible explained. Now let's talk about the Bible. What is the Bible specifically? Evangelism 2, which is a follow-up to, you guessed it, Evangelism 1. Let's see how that works. And Apologetics 1, and Systematic Theology, and Old Testament, New Testament overview, and Christianity and Government, and the one many of you are like already drooling over, End Times. We'll do a class on End Times. And then there's the 301 classes, Discipleship Explained, as we move further along. And then Missions and Apologetics 2 and Systematic Theology 2 and Leadership classes. All right. And then here's the color code is like, prerequisites, so to speak. Like, I think it's self-explanatory. You don't take Apologetics 2 before you do Apologetics 1. Like that just makes sense, right? And then here's our hope and healing classes, okay? If you go through the loss of a loved one, or you want freedom from anxiety, or you experience trauma and you're like, I need to just heal through trauma, or I need to deal with my guilt and shame of some past stuff. Maybe you need healing after a divorce or healing after a miscarriage. These are the things that happen in the church that often the church doesn't talk about, but New Hope, we're going to talk about it. We're going to have opportunities for people to experience this. Now, here's the thing, okay? You're looking at this and you're going, when do we start? All right, next week, do all of these. This is probably, this is 10 years worth of stuff. This is what we'll be dealing with and offering over the course of years. We're just offering classes and opportunities. This isn't all happening at once. This would be too much to do. But over the course of as we talk about discipleship long term, these are the things that we're going to offer and be focused on. So starting this fall, here's what we're going to do. We have 3 class opportunities. The first one is taught by our new pastor, this is his job now, is to do this, to help teach these classes. Pastor Brian Day is going to do our Christianity Explained. We're, all right, I need to know the basics. It's going to be 3 weeks. You can handle 3 weeks. You can commit to 3 weeks, starting on October 11th on Wednesday evenings. Awesome. Wonderful. And then a second class taught by this guy, Pastor Brandon, Evangelism 1, where we're talking about how do I share my faith. This is going to be a great opportunity for those of you who are, I've never done it, or I just want to be more effective at it. Great, I promise you this is going to change. This is going to change how you interact with people about your faith, I promise you. That'll be Sunday evening, starting October 8th. We'll meet for 4 weeks. And then, this one I'm super excited about. This is the marriage course. We're doing the next marriage course, and it'll be taught by the Matlocks, who are a great, wonderful couple, on Wednesday nights for 7 weeks, and we'll have childcare available. If you're like, hey, we got kids, awesome. We'll take them, and you can deposit them in our room, and then you can go work on your marriage. So this is coming up. We'll have plenty of opportunities. You can go online and sign up right here at our newupbend.com/upcoming. And there's plenty of opportunities for you to even now to say, all right, I'm going to start taking serious my discipleship so that I can be better at discipling my family. Because if you remember, the role of discipling your family rests with you. We're going to help. As a church, we will supplement and we will be a part of it. But it rests with you. So we're going to help you grow in your faith. You can grow as much as you possibly want to, and we'll be there to help. But the role of discipling rests with you. We're going to worship, and then we'll take communion together. So hold on to these, but let me pray for us. Will you stand with me, and then we'll worship the Lord together, and then we'll take the elements. So Lord, we thank you for your love for us. We thank you that you love us enough to save us, but you love us too much to leave us there. Part of our faith is what the Bible calls sanctification, growing in our relationship with you. Discipleship. Help us to become better disciples who know you more and experience you more. And help us to take seriously this high calling to disciple our families. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
We're going to sing